Hey, Joe Gilder here from Home Studio Corner. Want to change gears a little bit and show you a little bit of my mastering setup when I do mastering inside of Studio One. I don't do a ton of mastering. Usually my own albums, for the most part, I will send off and have someone else master it, and I do recommend that. But I do the occasional mastering session for clients, or if I'm mixing for somebody and they don't have a budget to hire another mastering engineer, they'll hire me to do it as kind of a bundle with mixing. So what I use for mastering is obviously this project window within Studio One. And what I love, and I've shown this in other videos, how the mix window, the song window, and the project window, or pages, or files will interact with one another on the back end. So if I go change a mix on the mix window, the next time I open this mastering session, if those two are linked together, it will update the mix here as I'm going through my mastering. Or if I'm keeping this as kind of a collection of songs I'm working on right now, I can quickly access all my songs from here, which is really, really cool. But if I'm doing some sort of a mastering, I wanted to give you a quick 3-minute overview of how I set up that mastering session. So if you haven't seen the project window before, it's included in Studio One Professional, so you need the full version to have access to this page. But essentially, you bring your files in, and they line up over here. You can see them down here in order, and then you have individual tracks representing the audio over here. Now, each track has its own set of plugins you can apply to it, just like a regular mix window. But then there's this master section. So this section goes plugin or track by track, song by song. This plugin is global. So anything you want to do to every song in here, you put here. So here's how I set this up. First thing I do is I'll stick a limiter in the insert section of the master. And I'll set it up like this. Ceiling of -1, threshold of -1, release of 100 milliseconds. So I've got one limiter in place to deal with everything. The next thing I'll do, sometimes I'll put different metering here, like a TT dynamic range meter, or if I want to do a spectrum analyzer, sometimes it's nice to have those there. There's one here, but if I want to rearrange it or make it bigger or smaller, that's where I would put it, down here in kind of the post section. So then I can hit play, and I can see what my frequencies are doing. I don't use that a lot because I like to use my ears instead, but that's a great place for something like that. Now, the next thing I usually do is add a mix tool plugin on the inserts of a particular track. So here, for example, we've turned this one up by 2.23 dB. The idea is I'm going to use this mix tool to bring it up to mastered level. So if we hit play, and our meter down here is set to K14, which is what I use for mastering, we want the average level of this song to get up around 0, where the color changes from green to yellow. So to do that, I like to just turn up with the mix tool. So the middle, most of the song is around here. The loudest part of the songs get up in the red area. That doesn't mean clipping. That just means we're in one of the louder sections of the song. And if you abide by these rules, you'll make sure not to over limit and over master your songs and make them too loud, which is something you don't want to do. It's tempting to do, but you don't need to. So from here, I'll use typical tools like EQ most of the time, and then compression, either multi-band compression or standard compression. They all go here after my mix tool plugin, and everything's going down the pipe and coming through my limiter. It's really that simple for me most of the time. If I have to do other kinds of processing, I will. Sometimes I just use EQ, a tiny bit of EQ, and the limiter. But this is just kind of a starting point basic setup. There are other tools that I do use. For example, Ian Shepard's Perception plugin is fantastic for mastering, and I won't go into that here, but that's one that I do use. And there's others out there, but this is kind of the way, at least in Studio One, you'd want to set things up so that you can get the most out of it, and it's an efficient way to work. One limiter is working on everything as opposed to having one limiter on every single track. Things like that makes it a little easier. Okay? All right, that's it for me. I'm Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. See you in the next video.